Values. You probably heard that before. And when you now say, yeah, I heard the values, we had the posted on the wall. However, that was basically all of it. We can do better than that, can't we? And yes, we can. We have an expert on the matter with us here today. Hello and welcome, Christy Pretzinger.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you very much for taking the time, and we get straight into the topic. You have an expertise on building a workplace culture with intentional values. Let's face it, many people are, I don't want to say tired, they're almost over the whole discussion of values. They always say, look, we have some sort of workshop, we make our input, suddenly the management decides something, then we get posters on the wall, and we wonder, so when these are our values, why it says respect on the wall, so why don't I have respect in my workplace? So why does this happen so often, and how can organizations be better?
I think that's a multi-layered, complicated question, but I'll try and
Yes.
be simple in my answer. I think part of the reason is depending on the size of the organization. If it's a smaller owner business, like a small business,
Yeah.
the owner founder tends to sit in a room and come up with values. I've heard many times people do that, which is a huge mistake because you get no buy-in. And then people decide the CEO decides to change them because they're not working without any input whatsoever. So that's flaw number one. Flaw number two, in huge organizations, frequently, to your point, they're on the wall. They might be on some paper somewhere, but they haven't really incorporated it into the organization. I've seen ones that do. There's a very large university near where I am. It's called the Ohio State University, and they have complicated, long values. It's not like ours are empowered, curious, kind, and fun. Theirs are complicated, but they really do. They are woven into their workplace, and all the
Hmm.
different departments have different ways that they incorporate them and that they apply them. And they have the freedom to do that, but they are urged to do it, and they do. And I thought that was really well done. And it shows in the tenure of their employees, in the way that they treat one another, and, in all of that workplace happiness thing too. It really does show up.
Excellent. What would you say when now someone says, "Look, I'm a mid-sized business. We never thought of that. We just have values. I think that just happened, but we don't have it anywhere in writing or formalize them. How do we actually find out that we don't create something where people say, well, that feels a bit off to have these things suddenly? How do people actually get to the point that they say we create this and we have it somehow that it's really woven into what we do here? Because that's the goal many organizations have, and let's face it,
Mhm.
many fail to achieve that.
Mhm. If you are a mid-sized organization and you don't have values, my experience of that would be to get a small cohort, a small team of people who are highly engaged and say, let's get together and let's decide how we do things here. And let's come up with the term is values, but we want a mission too. Like what is it that we're here for? What's our why? So let's
Mm.
collectively agree on our why, and then our values can fall out of that. And then we can decide how to make sure that we weave it into the tapestry of our culture in a way that is meaningful and actionable for all people.
Excellent. And of course, this is all about people, as you say. And when we talk about teams, you have something which is called the EQ or the EI. What do you mean with that, and why is it important?
Well, EQ is obviously everybody knows about emotional quotient. It's been around for over 40 years. So there's a lot of information there. And EQ is something that going on in the field in a meeting, who's doing what and whatnot. I also developed something, excuse me, that I call BQ, your better quotient. And what that is the capacity we all have to become better. So when
Mhm.
you have your EQ, it's about naming and claiming emotions. EQ is really kind of foundational in helping people access emotions, which we're not very good at. Most people have three words to describe how they're feeling: mad, sad, glad. That's it. And so that's how they describe, yeah, that's it, right? and
Yeah,
that and
go
and
on.
that's
Yeah.
right, and that's the lens through which they see the world. Well, there's nuance there. We all know the difference between sadness and anguish. That's a different thing. And so really, EQ is the practice of naming and claiming your emotion. And then BQ, your better quotient, is what are you going to do with that? Okay, I know I'm in a meeting, I'm frustrated. What's the choice I'm going to make about what I'm going to do with that emotion now that I know that I have it? And
Mm.
it's okay to be frustrated. It's not okay to dump it on everybody else. So you learn the BQ is learning how to manage those things, to make the choice to avoid behavior that's going to require an apology later.
Yeah. Excellent. And when now people say, look, we have so many different people in our organizations, what's your take on how much and in which ways can actually leaders adapt to different personality types? How do you, because many people say they are all so different, I have to choose one style for
Yeah.
me. And
Mhm.
I think people have to align to me, or what maybe is the better approach, how to deal with personality types.
Well, we always say everything would be easier without the people, right?
Yeah.
And also you could do
One good
nothing
one
without the
after another
people,
here. This is,
right?
yes.
Well, I think that, there's several ways of doing that, right? I mean, I've often said that it's much easier to be a general than to be a leader of consensus. A general, you're like, here's your orders, go do it. If you don't do it, there's consequences, you're gone, and I'm going to go figure it out. You can do that, and that can be very effective. It's kind of the Jack Welch school of leadership, which really isn't flying with the younger generation
Yeah.
now because they want
Not
authenticity.
flying
They
is
want,
very politely said. Not flying is
yes.
very politely said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I think that there's a reasonable expectation, given the environment in which these younger Gen Z in particular have been grown up and served up to them, which has not been anything great with social media and all of the things, and then AI taking so many things. It's reasonable to be able to meet these people where they are, and they are yearning for human connection and community, and they don't know how to do it. So you as a leader need to model that. And I've had other leaders say to me, well, they've asked me how I've handled something. And when I tell them, they're like, well, I don't have time for that. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. You don't have to have time for it, but don't pretend like you care about culture then. They're mutually exclusive because it takes more time to listen than it does to give orders.
Mm.
And that's the first key to being an effective leader and recognizing other people's personalities. I
Mm.
know that I can talk too fast and take over and get very kind of pushy. I'm a bias to action. So I have to really discipline myself to not speak and to let people speak and to hear what they have to say. And that's different personalities, understanding that and really moderating your behavior because you're a grown up. You can moderate your behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it now comes to exactly that, let's say someone says, maybe you heard leaders to say, look, Christy, I just want to tell you up front, when things can become a bit stressful, I can become reasonably loud, you know. That's not personal. I don't mean it against you. This is just how I am. My communication is that's just my communication style. And you hold expertise in excellent communication and writing and speaking for leaders. However, how do you deal with people who think, look, Christy, I'm in the business for 25 years. I know how it goes here. Don't tell me you know better how to run this business. I know how this works. But people are becoming so difficult today. So how can someone practice effective communication in writing and speaking when you have so many people out there who say, look, I know how it goes, but people are the problem?
Well, I'm not one who is going to tell everybody you're doing everything wrong and here's how you should do it. I can only speak from my own experience and say that I know in my own experience that I am not a fixed being. I am constantly changing, and I can choose to change or I can choose not to change, but it is a choice. And it is never simply that's the way I am because you aren't the same person you were 5 minutes ago because things have happened to you and changed. It's up to you to decide if you want to adapt your behavior or you don't. You do not have to adapt your behavior. If you like the results that you're getting and you are fine with everything going the way that it is, then have at it. If you are having issues, then I'd be happy to talk to you about how you can lead and lead your organization by leading with vulnerability. You're not going to like that one, but when you lead with vulnerability, then that encourages the vulnerability of the people that report to you, which means you get to really more honest issues around what's actually happening. But you have to
Mm.
be the one to model that behavior. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. That's
Yeah,
fine. You're just going to keep
absolutely.
going down the road you're going down, and that's okay. That's a choice.
Excellent. Two more questions. When we now want to make people grow, as a leader, you want to help people grow. However, that also means you sometimes have to ask pretty tough questions. You sometimes
Yes.
have to ask the right questions. And let's also face it, not everyone is happy about facing these questions. So, how do you actually ask the hard question that help people and companies grow without crossing the line where they say, sorry, that was it for me?
That's an interesting one. And I don't know that again, only in my own experience, I don't know that I have the answer for all of that because it's, some people don't want to grow. And also
Mm.
some people, I think it's important to recognize as a leader that some people only have so much capacity for growth. I always say that nobody gets out of childhood without wounds, right? We all have them. They show up differently. Some of us carry them well into adulthood. Some of us process them and try and put them in their proper place, but everybody has them. And sometimes you'll run up against people who are simply like, this is how I am. And I cannot open up any further than this, because I used to say stuff like about my mom. I always said that I never saw her cry in her whole life. And I think it's because she thought if she started, she'd never stop. And
Mm,
that's a wound, and I think that recognizing that people and having respect for that you might be able to be open to change or to being vulnerable, but you have to be respectful of the boundaries that other people set. And some people just can't do it. And
yeah.
that's okay.
Absolutely. When people now say, well, this is amazing and we really need help in our organization, they might wonder, I think Christy could help us as a trainer or coach or a keynote speaker for our events. The question is, how can they get in touch?
The easiest way is christypretzinger.com. And you can also find me on LinkedIn, or you can just Google me. I am easily found, probably too easily found.
Brilliant. So you see workplace and organizational culture, help is available, and you better get in touch right now. So at the end of this podcast and videocast, there's only one thing left for me to say. Christy, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I enjoyed our conversation.